Good evening, dear viewers, and welcome to the News Bulletin at 8, brought to you by number one news provider Eswatini TV. I am Nondumiso Vilagati alongside Zaman Zimanze. Let's take a look at our news-making headlines. The Deputy Prime Minister has given a stern warning to proscribed organizations and any institution against using children in marches of any kind. 6 million trees have been planted so far under the 10 million tree planting campaign. The Principal Secretary at the Ministry of Information, Communications and Technology says the Kingdom of Eswatini prioritizes data protection issues. Now the news in detail. The Deputy Prime Minister, Themba Masuku, has given a stern warning to proscribed organizations and any institutions against using children in marches of any kind. The Deputy Prime Minister was reacting to an incident which happened last week where a child was part of a march organized by one of these organizations.
Let no one destroy the future of our children. And we want to emphasize that, and we appeal to everyone to not destroy the future of our children. The country's constitution of 2005 and the Children's Protection and Welfare Act of 2012 obligates parents and duty bearers, such as schools, religious groups, and community leaders, to ensure that children are protected from any practice which may affect their growth and development. The Children's Protection and Welfare Act of 2012 stipulates clearly that parents have a responsibility to protect the child from violence, from abuse, exploitation, exposure to physical and moral hazards. We didn't see this over the weekend, or whenever this march was undertaken. The Office of the Deputy Prime Minister is doing all necessary investigations and consultations to ensure that law takes its course on all perpetrators of such child abuse.
The government of the Kingdom of Eswatini has received recognition from the UN International Residual Mechanism for Criminal Tribunals for the excellence, cooperation and the role played by the country in the apprehension of a fugitive that was involved in the Rwanda genocide in 1994.
According to government spokesperson Alpheus Nxumalo, the International Residual Mechanism for Criminal Tribunals Office of the Prosecutor Fugitive Tracking Team was on Monday received at the Prime Minister's office, where they openly appreciated the Kingdom of Eswatini's role in the arrest of Fulgence Kayishema, who had been on the run for over 20 years and is charged with the brutal killing of more than 2,000 Rwandans. Kayishema once stayed in the Kingdom of Eswatini, where he came as a refugee. He was arrested in Pearl in the Republic of South Africa on 24 May 2023 following a joint operation by the IRMCT Office of the Prosecutor Fugitive Tracking Team and South African authorities. The Kingdom of Eswatini has been credited for creating a task force at the request of the IRMCT and working hand in hand with the IRCMT tracking team so to ensure the fugitives' arrest. During the meeting, IRMCT Deputy to the Prosecutor Kevin Hughes expressed the appreciation of the IRMCT, the UN Secretary Council, and the government of Rwanda for Eswatini's cooperation in this mission. He also pledged the IRMCT's willingness to support Eswatini in any way as their means of expressing gratitude to the country. In response, the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs, Polile Shakantu, standing in for the Prime Minister, thanked the IRSCMT for the update and recognition. She said the Kingdom of Eswatini was happy that families of the victims of the 1994 Rwanda genocide had finally found closure and that the fugitive had been apprehended. She also requested for a training support on fugitive tracking from the IRCMU. For Eswatini TV News, Fortune Dlangamandla, Babane.
The World Bank has recommended that the country considers the ownership of state-owned enterprises, strengthen legal framework on these enterprises, and ensure greater transparency of information to enhance accountability and oversight in this sector. This is contained in the 2023 Economic Update Report, which has been launched at Hilton Garden Inn in Mbabane.
The persistent low growth of the country's economy and unprofitable state-owned enterprises are part of the reasons the World Bank has worked with the Minister of Finance to find a significant reform to help the country achieve socio-economic aspirations through state-owned enterprises.
One of the key findings of the report is that both the Kingdom and the SACO countries are trapped in a low growth path. So it's a very important, observation, and we hope that the report argues actually that the SOE reform, the state-owned enterprise reform, can be a key element to boost economic growth for the Kingdom.
The Minister of Finance, Neil Rickenberg, says the country currently started a process to strengthen the legal framework for Category A state-owned enterprises.
And even though we need to do reforms, I don't want that to sound like our SOEs are necessarily all in trouble. That's not the case. We have, I'll maybe even refer to one or two SOEs that are really performing very, very well. And I'll try and refrain from referring to any that are under the Ministry of Finance. So I'll use EEC as an example. EEC, when trouble hit with COVID, EEC was in profit-making territory. EEC was getting double-digit increases on the cost of electricity coming to EEC. EEC managed to cushion that increase and managed to pass virtually for 2 years during the peak, during the height of our pain as an economy, managed to cushion the increase in electricity tariffs through to the end consumer.
The World Bank has also recommended that Eswatini should address macro-fiscal pressures, unlock private sector investment, and enhance service delivery for inclusive growth. For Eswatini TV News, Nelson Dlangamandla, Cindy Swazwane, and Skumbuzo Dlamini, Mbabane.
The Minister of Tourism and Environmental Affairs, Moses Vilagati, says to date, Eswatini have 6 million trees under the 10 million tree planting campaign. The minister applauded Eswatini for participating in this national project.
To mitigate the impacts of climate change, the Minister of Tourism and Environmental Affairs launched a 10 million tree planting campaign in 2020, themed Plant a Tree and Save the Environment. The ministry launched another project this year in commemoration of the International Day of Forest, the 1.2 million tree planting project. The Minister of Tourism, Moses Vilagati, has commended efforts by Eswatini to plant trees.
It's exciting to report that to date, we have planted close to 6 million trees, but we're still not that excited because we'd have loved to reach 10 million. On the other one, of 1.2 million trees planted within a day, we were able to plant 920,020 trees, which is 77% achievement. We take this opportunity to thank various stakeholders, communities and individuals, schools, municipalities, churches, as well as health facilities that came on board.
The minister also says the country is set to build an eco-city in Bageni. Reporting for Eswatini TV News, I'm Sam Katsiwe Koza with Semova Shongwe, Babane.
The Principal Secretary at the Ministry of Information, Communications and Technology, Pesheya Dube, says the Kingdom of Eswatini prioritizes data protection issues. The PS has been speaking during a courtesy from the African Union Development Agency on Monday.
In 2015, the African Union member states adopted Agenda 2063, which is a strategic framework for inclusive growth and sustainable development for these countries. On Monday, the Minister of Information, Communications and Technology received a courtesy visit from the African Union Development Agency to have discussions on the data for citizen engagement for development projects. The PS and the Minister of ICT, Pesheya Dube, says the Kingdom of Eswatini has data issues on the priority list.
Happy that to have a team such as yours who have come to the country to somehow help us develop the necessary tools of analysis, so that at the end of the day we're able to connect government to the citizens.
The delegation was headed by Dr. Gideon Nimako, who is the head of strategy and planning for Outer NEPAD.
One of the things that is coming out clearly from the evaluation of our first decade, from 2013 up to date, is that Agenda 2063 is not well known when you compare it with the SDGs. It's not well known, which means that we need to do more in terms of engaging the ordinary citizenry as to the awareness and communication, as to the continental program, regional programs, and national programs.
The delegation is to have a meeting with different stakeholders on data issues and Agenda 2063. Reporting for Eswatini TV News, I'm Samkal Suekoza with Zimuva Shongwe, Babane.
There are 17 aspirant constituency council and members of parliament that failed the vetting exercise. According to the Elections and Boundaries Commission's Communications Officer, Mbonisi Bembe, most of these aspirants that failed the vetting exercise failed because of tax clearance. Bembe says they were 3,489 constituency councils and members of parliament that were nominated to these positions, whereas after the vetting exercise, there are now 3,472 eligible to contest for these positions.
The Elections and Boundaries Commission Communications Officer Mbonisi Bembe says the list of those eligible to be elected to the positions of constituency headmen and members of parliament during primary elections is available.
Sesinawo mabito ebantfu labatawungenela lukhetfo lwekucala primary election esigabeni sendvuna yenkundla nesigaba selilunga leParlamente. Nangabe kukhona labawile bambalwa kakhulu libandla liyajabula.
He proceeds to state that EBC is happy that few candidates failed the vetting exercise. He says this shows that Eswatini managed to nominate the rightful candidates. On the issue of those who withdrew from standing for the elections, he says EBC received about 5 cases. Bembe further mentions that all those who failed the vetting exercise have been informed about the developments. He also emphasizes that the vetting of chiefdom councillors Uqobo is still underway as they are not going to contest during the primary elections on August 26, 2023, but they will only contest during the secondary elections. For Eswatini TV News, Fortune Dlangamandla, Ulismova Shongwe Nganini.
The Country Coordinating Mechanism's Chief Executive Officer, Dr. Advocate Dlamini, says the Kingdom of Eswatini's efforts to eliminate malaria, TB, HIV and AIDS are commendable. The CEO has been speaking during a Global Fund grant application meeting held with stakeholders.
Global Fund provides the Kingdom of Eswatini with financial assistance for TB, malaria and HIV and AIDS elimination programs. On Monday, the Eswatini's Country Coordinating Mechanism, which is a wing that coordinates the development of the national request for Global Fund funding, gathered with stakeholders to draft the grant Cycle 7 application. The CEO for the Eswatini's Country Coordinating Mechanism, Dr. Advocate Dlamini, unpacked the significance of the meeting.
Naturally, Global Fund every 3 years is a cycling. Global Fund, we need to make what we call a grant application. So it is that time of the year as a country that we're doing that, where we believe that after such a successful grant application, we shall get support from Global Fund. So this exercise entails gathering all specialists, all colleagues, all people in the Ministry of Health that are either program colleagues, managers, etc., that are involved in the 3 diseases, TB, HIV, and malaria plus COVID-19. But this time around, we're talking about TB, HIV.
The Kingdom of Eswatini is expected to have submitted the grant application by August 21st, 2023. Reporting for Eswatini TV News, I'm Samkal Suekoza with Zimuva Shongwe, Eswatini.
Zwelibanzi Smelane, who stands accused of killing his girlfriend Sharon Neves, who was Shiselweni National Emergency Responses Council on HIV and AIDS coordinator, claims that he tried to save his lover Neves from dying. Unfortunately, his attempts were rebuked by the deceased. The accused person said this during the continuation of his trial before High Court Judge Maxine Langwenya.
The accused person, Zwelibanzi Simelane, is represented by his lawyer Mlinzi Mthethwa and the state-parated detective Nkosinathi Thusi, who took pictures at the crime scene. Mthethwa informed the court that he has been informed that on the day of the incident, Mthethwa and the deceased Sharon Neves were in a good talking terms. He said things turned nasty after Simelane failed to return on time from Eswatini. He told the court that in a telephonic interview, the deceased allegedly started to shout at him. The court heard that while the accused person and his friend Thulan Dlamini were having alcoholic beverages at his Majesty's Correctional Services in Hlangano, the deceased joined them. She was allegedly carrying a glass of wine and left her bottle in her motor vehicle. The court further heard that the deceased left around 8 p.m. while he joined her in their house around 11 p.m. It was the accused person's evidence that upon arrival, he allegedly found Neves drinking some wine and watching TV. He says at this moment, the deceased allegedly verbally and physically abused him. The accused person further alleged that after this, he lost his temper and ended up beating up the deceased. He says he mistakenly pushed Neves, and she fell on a coffee table with her head and also hit the floor. The accused person says out of fear, he went outside and smoked while trying to make a call to get assistance. However, when he returned, he allegedly found Neves lying at the passage. Crown witness Thusi says when the accused person was arrested, he had no bruises that show that he was involved in a fight. Thusi also wondered why the accused person did not reach out for medical help. For Eswatini TV News, Fortune Dlangamandla, Nondo Dube, High Court.
The Book of Revelation seminar was finally launched today, which is to unveil the unknown information on the Book of Revelation. The event was graced by the presence of His Royal Highness Prince Banzile and the University of Andrew Professor Dr. Ranko Stefanovic. The event was held at the Sibane Hotel Eswatini.
Today's seminar, which is conducted by Dr. Ranko from the USA, from the University of Andrew. He's basically going to tell us more what's happening on the Book of Revelations. Since the Book of Revelations is more about the coming of Christ, the Lord Jesus said He's coming, but He didn't tell us the day and the time, but there are signs that are following His coming. So Dr. Ranko is here to meet the pastors for the 3 days workshop from today until Wednesday to share the knowledge.
This winter season has recorded a high number of snake bites, which is unusual. The founder of the Eswatini Anti-Venom Foundation, Tialich Kakon, says members of the public asks members of the public to be cautious of snakes as snake bites are recorded on a daily basis. Sensitive viewers are advised that the following report contains visuals of snakes.
It is uncommon to receive a high number of snake bites during the winter season. According to the founder of the Eswatini Anti-Venom Foundation, Tialich Kakon, about 30 snake bites were recorded this winter, which is quite alarming.
We've had close to 30 snake bites recorded during the winter months, which is probably 4 or 5 times more than what we usually do. So we need to please be careful. We need to remain vigilant, even though it is cooler outside and we do have cooler spells. There's a lot you can do to help yourself not getting bitten. Simple things like wear shoes when you're walking outside, use a torch so you can see where you're going. Make sure that your home isn't a hotel for rodents.
She urges people to wear long pants and shoes and use a torch when traveling at night.
4 regions are affected by the puffadder bite. There isn't one region that is more active than the other.
She says people must walk away whenever they come across a snake and avoid beating snakes because that is very dangerous. The number to call whenever they come across snakes is 7602-5088. For Eswatini TV News, I am Kiani Msibi with Smova Shongwe, some visuals sourced from the internet.
Dear viewers, now take a look at our financial updates.
Update is proudly brought to you by eBet. Join our family of winners by visiting us today at ebet.co.sz. eBet, born to win.
Eswatini TV, and for sports news tonight, Mbabane Highlanders director Ali Homoe and Mbabane Swallows manager Sandile Zwane say taking part of different charity tournaments will give them better preparations ahead of the new season. The two club bosses mentioned this after both clubs won a piece of silverware over the past weekend.
In our sports roundup, we begin with Mbabane Highlanders director Ali Khomong and Mbabane Swallows general manager Sandile Zwane, who believe taking part of different charity tournaments will give them better preparations ahead of the new season.
Actually, I was very happy with that. It was a coincidence. It's like we tell each other that we must go to South Africa and compete with the big giants in South Africa, both of us, Mbabane Swallows and Mbabane Highlanders. So I was very happy to see them competing because actually, those two teams, the three teams, Wanderers and Moneni, those are big teams.
Sesithiniwe ku disappoint ama supporters sesithekele season le asisi preparation kahle saqala. Sitokhona ukuthi sikhona sibuya na something esingayiletha kuma supporters uzathi khona kujabule. Nalokuthi iHighlander iwina nje nawe bengekho bengaphandle kwaleli. Kuphuma ngaphandle kwaleli yothola icompetition yo practice nalabanye abantu kukhona lokunengi lokutholako. Lokwenda kusina subuya la khaya khona kuba behlula nalabanye. So ngisho kona ukuthi lokho khombisa ukuthi iMbabane Highlanders neMbabane Swallows khona labakufisile this year kukwenda.
Highlanders lifted the Bible Society Cup this past weekend, while Swallows lifted the red card to GPV tournament in the Republic of South Africa. Moving on, the Commonwealth Youth Games were officially opened in Trinidad and Tobago on Sunday, with the Kingdom of Eswatini being represented by 4 athletes, being Sibusisiwe Mabuza and other from Swimming Association being Hailey Ho and Damon Souza. Ho was the first to represent the country and didn't have a good performance as she finished last. The good news came from 100-meter sprinter Sibusisiwe Mabuza, who proceeded to the semi-finals after finishing 3rd. Reporting for Eswatini TV Sports, I'm Linda Dlamini, Mbabane.
The Sports was proudly brought to you by eBet. Don't hesitate. Visit us today at ebet.co.sz. eBet, born to win.
That is all we had for tonight, but before we wrap up, we'll take a quick recap of today's headlines.
Liphinde ladvina nkulu selekhute umkhuba wekusebentisa bantfwana emishucweni noma ngabe yaluphi uhlobo. Sekuhlanyelwe tihlahla letitigidzi letisithupha 6 million.
The Deputy Prime Minister has given a stern warning to proscribed organizations and any institution against using children in marches of any kind. 6 million trees have been planted so far under the 10 million tree planting campaign. The Principal Secretary at the Ministry of Information, Communications and Technology says the Kingdom of Eswatini prioritizes data protection issues. That brings us to the end of our news bulletin tonight. Up next is the weather focus for selected towns. Good night, Eswatini.
We at Eswatini Television Authority are committed to observing the Eswatini Communication Commission's Broadcasting Code of Conduct.
Under the code, we are committed to broadcast news that is current, free from hate speech, accurate, balanced, and fair.
From politics to business, health, agriculture, courts, and global news, we bring you